Now, the question is, how can we get this number as close to zero as possible? The answer is vigilance. A major culprit of a lane change collision is failing to see vehicles in adjacent lanes.
Thankfully, there's something you can do to prevent that from happening, and it begins even before you get on the road.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean seat and mirror adjustment. By taking a few moments to properly adjust your seat and mirrors to maximize your field of view, you can save yourself hours of trouble down the road.
Drivers, that's exactly why we are here talking to you today. The video you're about to watch will take you through proper seat and mirror adjustment. You'll also see some examples of what can happen when your mirrors or seat are positioned poorly. I know I've seen a lot of videos personally myself where the seat's all the way on the floor.
And then we'll finish out with some tips on taking a direct look and how to implement the smog technique in your driving. Let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Tracy Clark, a training design specialist and million-mile driver. You might have seen me in other videos, or even as your trainer way back when, but today I'm going to show some examples of poor seat and mirror adjustment, and then show you how to adjust your seat and mirrors for optimal visibility. Riding too low in your seat can limit your visibility all around the vehicle. In this example, we see that our driver is seated too low. V2 is traveling in the right lane, hovering near the front corner of our tractor. Our driver checks the side mirrors, but fails to use the look-down mirror. By the time we see V2, it's too late, and a collision has already occurred. What's wrong with this situation? If you didn't spot it, check out the driver's seat height. Once again, this seat position is not ideal for maximum visibility. We attempt to enter the right lane by quickly glancing in our mirror. Our driver strains to look over the dash and hood at the moment of impact. We just didn't see V2 until it was right in front of us. These examples show us potential blind spots during a lane change, some of which could be related to poor seat positioning and mirror usage. Let's learn more about setting up your seat and mirrors for optimal visibility. Before we start, I'd like to mention that the ideal seat position isn't a one-size-fits-all. Every driver has different proportions and mobility limitations. So we're going to walk through some steps that will help you find your ideal seat adjustment. First off, we're going to enter the tractor using 3 points of contact. Now that I'm seated, the first thing we want to do is adjust the seat height. As you can see, the seat can be lowered and raised using this lever. Raise the seat as high as possible while keeping your feet flat on the floor and your back completely against the seat. Your legs should form a 90-degree angle. Next, we're going to adjust the seat distance with your back against the seat, using this lever to slide the seat forward or back until you can reach the wheel and pedals without straining. Don't move it so far back that your arms and legs are overextended. There should be a slight bend in your elbows and knees. After that, we can adjust the seat back angle and lumbar supports, using these levers to adjust the seat so that it supports your neck and spine. You should not need to lean forward to reach the wheel or look at your mirrors. And finally, we can adjust the wheel itself. Use this lever to move the wheel into a position that allows you to reach the controls easily and turn without leaning forward. Again, it's important to remember that every driver's different. Some may prefer to ride a little lower in their seat because they find it's easier to operate the pedals. That's fine and legal. We just don't want you needlessly straining to see the space around your vehicle, especially during a right lane change. And the lower you sit, the more you're going to have to turn your head and lean forward to see what might be there. With the seat properly adjusted, now let's move on to the mirrors. You can think of your mirrors as a second set of eyes. They help you get that 360 degrees of awareness that we strive for as drivers, especially during lane changes, turns, merges, and tight maneuvers. Before adjusting any of the mirrors, make sure the trailer is straight with the tractor. Next, we'll adjust the driver and passenger side mirrors. Adjust the flat mirror, which some people call California style. until the outside edge of the unit is just visible along the inside edge of the mirror. Adjust the convex mirror much the same way. The outside edge of the equipment will be barely visible along the inside edge of the convex mirror. Repeat this adjustment on the passenger side. There should be about 5 feet of overlap between the two mirrors. Notice how the rear corner area of the tractor and outside edge of the front set of duals are visible on the inside edge of the convex. Next, we can adjust the fender mirrors. Adjust both so they're nearly even with the outside of the unit. You want to see mostly road, so again, keep the equipment just on the inside edge. Finally, we can move on to the passenger side look-down mirror. The mirror should be extended until the passenger step is barely visible from your point of view. This mirror reduces blind spots along the passenger side of the truck. That's where most of your side swipe and lane change collisions occur. And remember to check this mirror prior to every right lane change. Now we're all set for the road. Sitting comfortably in my seat, I can easily assess the space around my vehicle without straining. Let's get going. Would you walk across the street without looking? Of course not. You'd look left and then you'd look right. You wouldn't just rely on the signal or your peripheral vision. In the same way, you should not use your mirrors as a substitute for a direct look. Mirrors help you get the big picture, but not the whole picture. This is where the smog technique comes in during lane changes. S stands for signal. Activate your turn signal to indicate your intentions 3 to 5 seconds before you start the lane change. This isn't just a courtesy heads up to other drivers. It's a crucial safety measure that allows other motorists to anticipate your next move. M is for mirrors. Next, check your mirrors. Check your fender mirror to get a broad sense of the lane activity. Then check your side mirrors, both of them, the flat and the convex. If you're completing a right lane change, check your passenger look-down mirror as well for vehicles hiding near the front of your tractor. O stands for over the shoulder. Taking a direct look is often the best way to ensure the lane you're merging into is clear. Look directly to the areas in front of and to the side of your vehicle. And G is for go. After you signal, checked your mirrors, and taken the direct look, slowly ease into the lane. Stay smooth and steady without any sharp or sudden movements. And continue to check your mirrors to stay up to date on changing traffic flow. Don't move over more than one lane at a time. Repeat the smog technique from beginning to end every time you transition into a new lane. It can be easy to slip into complacency, whether it's failing to properly adjust your seat or just taking a quick glance at your mirrors during a lane change. These simple shortcuts could really hurt you down the line. Set yourself up for success by taking the time to properly adjust your seat and mirrors. Slow down and treat every maneuver with caution. Don't assume it's clear. Make sure it's clear.
Thanks, Tracy. She's right. Taking the few minutes before you hit the road to set up your seat and mirrors is a critical step. It's not optional, it's essential.
Drivers, we hope you remember this guidance and take it to heart. Stay safe out there.
My son and I were driving through Oklahoma City, had the radio on, and the guy comes on the radio, "Hey, anybody want any underage girls?"
One of the things that we saw that disturbed us quite a bit was seeing a van pull up with a woman driving, 5 or 6 girls that got out. It looked like they ranged anywhere from 15, 16, maybe 18 years old, but all of them very, very young.
This one, she didn't even look 13, 14 years old. She had no shoes on. She had a little mini skirt on.
She couldn't have been more than 14, 15 years old.
She probably looked in her 14, 15 years old. I really couldn't tell of her age, but she was very young.
I know good and well a 14-year-old, 15-year-old is not doing this on her own accord.
I remember looking into the eyes of some of these young girls. They were not willing participants in this at all.
I said, "I've got one question for you." She said, "What's that?" I said, "Why are you doing this?" She said, "Just look around the corner of the truck down there, and you'll see that Cadillac down there. That's why I do it." And when I looked down there, I knew what was going on.
So you know there's some kind of team effort in putting them out there. You have to wonder who's behind them.
They have a pimp or whatever you want to call them, trafficker, slave driver, bottom line.
Sex trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery. It's when traffickers are using force, fraud, or coercion to compel an individual to engage in commercial sex. It also involves anyone who's under the age of 18 is considered a victim of sex trafficking, regardless of the use of force, fraud, or coercion. And this is an issue that affects all populations of victims: men, women, children, foreign nationals. It's really important that we understand that.
Human trafficking is a local crime that is happening to your neighbor's child. It is a crime that is happening in your city. It is a crime that could happen to your child.
It makes me feel very uncomfortable because you know what? That could be my daughter.
To realize that this is going on is disturbing. That's, for a lack of a better word, it just disturbs me. It hurt me.
Nobody wakes up and says, "Gosh, I'd really like to sell myself on the streets today." That is something that is being directed by the victimizer, by the trafficker. And these kids find themselves in a situation they literally cannot get out of.
This needs to be stopped, and these young girls ought to have an opportunity to have a life. Their life is being robbed and taken away from them at such an early age.
It was me and my cousin Chrissy and my cousin Cody. We went in and asked my mom if we could go down and get some Frosties before dinner. And she said, yeah. Me and Chrissy's walking, and that's when the Lincoln pulled up.
Human trafficking is the exploitation of human beings for either the purposes of commercial sex or forced labor, and the trafficker uses force, fraud, or coercion to actually make money off of that person's back.
I think a lot of times people think about traffickers as one bad person who grabs a kid and somehow sells them on the street. But what we found in law enforcement is trafficking is often a team effort. It's the person transporting the child from place to place so that they can never be in a place long enough to get help. It is the person who actually lures the child in. It's the enforcer, the person who is beating the child. Could those all be the same person? Absolutely. But more often than not, it is a loose coalition of people who are working to keep that child enslaved.
And if we're looking at victims of sex trafficking, we're talking about specific forms of vulnerability. For example, someone who has a history of abuse or trauma. It could be someone who doesn't have a good social network. So we're talking about runaway and homeless youth. We're talking about Individuals who might be here, they might be undocumented, they came from other countries with promises of some different type of work.
Fraud is the false promises, right? I'm gonna make your life better. I have a great job offer for you. I want you to be in my music video. Anything to entice that victim.
We ended up going to his house, and that's when it pretty much hit us like a ton of bricks, because he wasn't nonchalant about it or anything. He just shut the door, locked it, and said that we're not leaving. And he sent Chrissy upstairs with one of the girls and me downstairs in the basement. What the girl that I went downstairs told me, is that I was gonna do what Derek told me to do, which they call daddy.
We're talking about that trafficker playing the boyfriend role, right? Or the daddy role. I love you. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to make your dreams come true.
It's not about a single type of person, but rather vulnerabilities that traffickers know how to exploit. They're very savvy, they're smart business people, and they know exactly what to be looking for.
This is old-fashioned greed. And where you can only sell a drug one time, you can sell a girl or a boy or a man or a woman over and over and over again.
We would have to have sex with men for money, and we had no say about it. And they already said from the beginning that if I did anything stupid, then Chrissy would be the one that would pay for it. She was my best friend, and I didn't want nothing to happen to her.
When we talk about coercion, we're talking about these psychological abuses. If you don't do this, I'm gonna kill your little brother. If you don't do this, I know where your dad lives. I'm gonna kill your dad. If you don't do this, I'm gonna kill you.
One day we made a run for it, but he was up. I guess he wasn't sleeping. I don't know if he was just mind games or what he was doing, but he grabbed us. He threw me into the dining room table. It was glass, and busted me up pretty good. But Chrissy, he dragged up the stairs by her hair, like all the way by her hair, and threw her down the stairs, and did it again like 3 more times, busted her lip up, got her bruised, black eye a little bit right here. And it was really horrible to hear her screaming for me, and the 2 girls were holding me back and, telling me that, I have to watch this, that this is what happens if I try to do that, that I made it happen, that it was my fault, I should have never, tried to leave. And just seeing her flying down the stairs, it was pretty bad.
Force is anything that you can imagine when that word comes into your head, right? It's the beatings, the burnings, the rape, the gang rape. Victims have been shot, they've been knifed, they've been mutilated and tortured in absolutely horrendous ways.
I'm hard pressed when I hear people say that, some do it willingly and want to do it willingly. I don't think anyone would really want to be beaten and raped on a daily basis and beaten in the most extreme ways. Violence goes hand in hand with these type of cases, and it's used to break down the girls. It's used to discipline the girls. It's used to gain complete control over them. I don't think there's any real willingness of your victims, especially your child victims.
And here we are, I'm 15 years old, my cousin is 14, and we're here at a truck stop, being forced to work it, being forced to go from truck to truck, asking, if the guy would like to have sex with us, and we're young girls, terrified out of our minds. At the truck stop, we were not together. She was God knows where, and I was over here. I didn't, one phone call saying, hey, she's acting up, or hey, she's trying to run, or she's trying to signal a truck driver that, that something's wrong, she's not acting right, and something could have happened to Chrissy, or vice versa. I mean, you couldn't see it on the outside looking at me, you couldn't see that something was wrong, but deep down in my eyes, there's something wrong. I was crying out for help, but I couldn't do it because, I didn't want to end up dead. I didn't want her dead and it be my fault. It's like they had us completely wrapped, completely controlled, to where we were brainwashed, to where we were like, okay, we have to do this or else, something bad could happen. I mean, who knows if they knew us well enough, they could have known where my family lived, you know, and killed them, you know, anything. Anything was going through my mind that, you know what, I have to do this or else something bad's going to happen to me, to my family, to my friends, anything, you know, and it's not something that you really see out on the surface, but it's happening, you know, inside my mind it was happening, you know, I was scared, unbelievably scared.
The trucking industry is in a unique position because they actually will be in locations that pimps will bring in their victims to be prostituted out. They're very transient. They move around a lot. So do your girls. Your victims are being moved constantly, whether it's through planes or cars that they'll just drive, or bus tickets, or through trucks. Any way that they can get to their money, that's how they're going to get there.
Truckers Against Trafficking is a grassroots organization. It comes alongside the trucking industry, recognizing that they're the eyes and ears of our nation's highways. They're in places that most people aren't, and that they can recognize potential victims of human trafficking more than the rest of us. And so we equip them with tools that they can recognize, identify potential human trafficking victims, and then a number to call, so that when they see human trafficking situations, they can report those and hopefully get the victims recovered and perpetrators arrested.
The partnership between the hotline and Truckers Against Trafficking has been really exciting. As soon as this campaign launched, we saw a significant increase in calls about trafficking cases that were not being reported before this population was learning about the issue. Now you're talking about a really highly trained group of individuals that are seeing trafficking, they know where to report it, they're reporting it right away, they're often seeing it while it's happening. And so it's even an earlier intervention and action point than a lot of the other cases that we're getting. And as a result, we have seen countless investigations. We've seen countless victims who've been recovered by law enforcement. So this is just, it's so important that this population knows what to recognize, knows who to call, and feels comfortable doing that.
So signs to look for. The most important one is if you ever see a minor selling commercial sex. By federal definition, that is a child, that is a victim of human trafficking. There is no such thing as a child prostitute. But it's not just minors who are being victimized here. We're also talking about adults who are victims of the sex trade.
So where your truckers can help out at their rest stops, you know, they know who's coming in. You see a car pull in or a navigator pulling in. Why is a navigator pulling in with 10 girls in it and one guy behind the wheel? And all of a sudden you've got a bunch of young girls walking out in revealing or lingerie clothing.
So if you're in a parked location and you happen to see lights that are flashing, perhaps signaling that somebody is saying, I'm an available buyer, that should be a red flag. If you happen to hear CB chatter about commercial company or somebody needing to make a quota or somebody referencing their daddy or that boyfriend figure in their life, or if you're that local driver who is loading at a business front and you happen to see that unaccompanied minor or that minor who looks fearful or potentially is under the control of somebody else. What about branding? Do you see some tattoos claiming ownership over this person? This is a potential sign that you are interacting with a human trafficking victim. We've had cases come back from drivers already who are having conversations with people and asking questions like, are you traveling by yourself? And if they're not, who are they traveling with? When's the last time they've seen their family? Do they get to keep any of the money? Are they free to come and go as they please? These are important questions because they're going to help you determine whether or not this person has the freedom to walk out the door or not. So traffickers are continuing to exploit businesses for criminal gain, and they don't care where it is, whether it's that major sporting event or a big convention that's coming to town, or it could be a casino. Wherever it is, they're going to go where they can make money.
Everything from hotels and motels, commercial front brothels, to residential brothels, to street-based prostitution, to truck stops.
Those are locations that potentially those spaces could be exploited by traffickers. If you're in a bus terminal, this is a place where potential victims could be recruited out of. The more you look, the more you'll find. So what should you do in these situations? Well, first and foremost, make the call. We need you. We need the person who has identified the tip to first make the call. Call the hotline, 888-373-7888.
It's always details is what helps us. Simple things that you can note. What's the vehicle? The color of the vehicle, the make of the vehicle, description of any of the occupants, the girls, how many, race, possible age that you think it may not be. If you can get a license plate, what state, what the plate is, that's fantastic. If you can get a description of who's driving it, who's in control of it. If you can take pictures say 1,000 words. And if you have a camera or an iPhone, whatever it might be, that's a fantastic piece of evidence and piece of information that we can use.
And if you are in a location that has a general manager, go in then and tell the general manager. They need to know what's going on their property, wherever you are, wherever you're parked.
You know, it's getting involved that much. We're not saying go out there and grab the girls and try and drive away with them. Now, don't try and rescue them on your own, but even the smallest kind of little details that you guys have that can provide us with would help, and have helped to recover girls.
So Truckers Against Trafficking, we work with national and state trucking associations. We work with large and small carriers. We work with local, regional, over-the-road guys. We work with the truck stop and travel plaza community. We work with the trucking schools.
So the more you have transportation industries that are committed to this issue and really thinking about creative ways to help, the better we're going to be able to facilitate that connection from moving someone out of a trafficking situation.
We're talking about loopholes that are getting closed to traffickers that were once they were able to so easily exploit. And that's a huge part of what TAT does, bringing the trucking industry and law enforcement together to put these guys out of business. They have operated unfettered for too long, and it is enough.
Every one of these kids that are recovered and saved, what you have to remember is you're preventing hundreds of rapes going on. Every one of these guys that we arrest, that's preventing hundreds, if not thousands, of kids of being raped and abducted.
When we talk about the progress that's been made, it's just pretty amazing to watch one industry step up and say, yes, we're going to be proactive on this. And we see drivers being trained, and we see safety directors deciding to implement this, and CEOs of companies. And we see truck stops who are saying, yeah, we're going to put this information out for the drivers that visit our locations, and we're going to train our employees. It's fantastic, all of the different ways that the industry has decided, yes, we're going to own this issue. But we got to continue to reach the entire trucking industry. But imagine what will happen when we do. And then think about this. What if every taxi driver was trained? What if every bus driver was trained? Every gas station employee, every oil and gas worker where boomtown effects happen? What if we could train all of these armies to identify and recognize human trafficking and report it immediately when they see it? Where are the traffickers? What place are they going to have to go? Trucking has got this started, and that's why I say when we talk about who's driving change in this area, we have to talk about the trucking industry.
This is working. What you're doing has been working, has had a significant impact, and we're so thankful at the hotline that we have this partnership.
CDL drivers. We need to educate them about what we're talking about right here, human trafficking. We can make an impact. We can change everything that goes on out there by getting involved.
Thank God what saved me was that truck driver that called in and said, hey, you know, this is whoever at the truck stop, you know, and we have some girls out here that look pretty young.
911. A couple of girls that picked up 167 trying to do business out here.
Because this trucker made the call, I have an opportunity to actually have life. Without what he did for me, you know, a simple phone call, without that, you know, it would have been total opposite. But here I am, I'm sitting here with my mom, you know, I mean, and that all could have been taken away, but because of, you know, that trucker, I have, you know, a future.
Oh, that trucker. The one that made that phone call. I think about him all the time. I have never met him. I don't know who he is, but boy, I owe him a lot. And if he ever sees this, thank you.
Get on your cell phone. I mean, you know, get the TAC card, get the hotline number, call, and if it's someone in trouble, and the cops will show up, it's going to give them a chance to come clean with what's going on, maybe get out of the situation that they're in. So, you know, call the hotline, go inside, tell the management of the truck stop.
I think it has to stop, and I think it's going to take us drivers stopping it and reporting what we're seeing and taking action instead of shutting our curtains and hoping it goes away. I am a team truck driver with my husband, Bob.
Been a 16-year veteran of over-the-road truck driving.
I've been driving for 26 years.
And I am a trucker against trafficking.
And I'm a trucker against trafficking.
I'm a trucker against trafficking.
I am a trucker against trafficking.
My name is Andre, and I'm a trucker against trafficking.
And I am a trucker against trafficking.